Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video. And today I'm excited to be back with another plan with me in my husband's bullet journal. It's been a couple months since I posted one of these. As y'all now know, we've had a very busy summer and my husband was able to take some time off work to focus on home renovations. And because he was focused on that, he didn't need his bullet journal in the same way that he normally does. So he took a month or two, I can't remember now, off of using his bullet journal. And then for September, I did a really simple setup for him. If you want to see that setup, as I said, ridiculously simple, head over to my Instagram or my TikTok. They're linked in the description box down below and you can check that out. But today I'm excited to do a slightly less simple, but still super simple setup for October. And the art for the setup is inspired by some vintage art that I found on Pinterest. So one is a piece of vintage art and the other is actually a vintage book cover. And I felt like the styles of them went together really well and both evoked the feeling of heading out to the wilderness, taking a canoe, portaging, and then staying in a cabin in the woods, which is an activity my husband loves and just recently did. So I thought this would be a fun theme in honor of something that my husband really enjoys. This month, instead of doing a separate cover page, I decided to create a sidebar of art beside the monthly calendar. The calendar itself is super simple, but each day is big enough to really fit all of the stuff he has going on in his schedule. I also decided to go with really simple, sort of slightly rough, slightly messy, very handwritten looking lettering. I mean, all the lettering I do is handwritten, but you know what I mean. I often spend a lot of time on lettering trying to make it look really consistent, really neat. And this month I really tried to let go of that and just make something that looked like it could have maybe been, scratched into the side of a tree. That kind of aesthetic. Moving to the sidebar, as I said, this was inspired by a piece of vintage art. So for the most part, I was just recreating it here. One thing I really liked about both of these pieces of art is that most of the line work was in black, but there was one piece that was highlighted in red. And I thought that was a really cool use of color and wanted to recreate that here. So I'm using a Stabilo fine liner in red to draw out this cabin. And then I'm using a Sakura Micron to do all of the rest of the details in black. Not only am I trying to recreate this vintage art, but I really want this to have sort of a sketchy quality to it, to be a little messy, a little organic looking. So I'm allowing myself to be a little more free form in the way that I'm drawing. The original piece of art showed more of a winter landscape. The forefront was covered in snow and there was snow on the roof of the cabin. Because this is an October setup, I didn't quite want there to be snow just yet, so I did change a couple things to make it a little less snowy, but still give a little bit of a cold vibe. The air is getting crisp. It's autumn, We feel the turning weather in the air, but not quite covered in a blanket of snow. Yoda came for a visit and a snuggle, as she likes to do. My cats are always helping while I'm at work. I really tried to recreate the essence of the trees from this piece of art. That's what really stopped me when I first saw it, was the way that the trees were printed. And I found it actually quite difficult to draw trees this way, but I really like how they turned out. So it might be a technique that I have to revisit in the future. You might spot Chewy's ears. He also came for a visit. He was lying on my lap for a while. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know my lap is Chewy's favorite place. And especially since we moved and he's been a little off kilter adjusting to a new space, he definitely requires the comfort of my lap more often. I'm trying to combine some larger trees that are more in the forefront with some smaller trees that are further away, maybe on a hill that's descending away from the cabin, just for some texture and different levels. And on the right side, I'm trying to recreate what looked to me to be sort of a mountain range. It's a little difficult to tell because the quality of the art wasn't great. It must have been scanned at some point with a low resolution, but I wanted to create a little bit more darkness. I could have gone in with a Secura Micron with a larger nib to fill in the space, but I really wanted that irregularity, again, looking hand-drawn, having some lighter areas and darker areas. I think that adds to the more vintage vibe rather than it being just a solid black mass. I also added some strategic black details to the cabin just to darken certain areas. And I also added some darker trees just around the outline of the cabin so that it would stand out from the background a little bit better. I covered up the smoke coming out of the chimney by accident while I was drawing. I just saw an empty space and felt the need to fill it. So I had to go back in with a white paint marker to add that back in because there was supposed to be smoke coming out of the chimney. I'm also adding some details to the foreground to make it look a little bit more like an uneven, sort of grassy, hilly path up to the cabin rather than the snowy landscape that it was in the original piece of art. But I didn't want to go too over the top, so I just kept it simple with a couple areas of dashed lines just to add a little bit more dimension. Flipping over to the next spread, which is the beginning of my husband's notes pages. This one, as I said, is a recreation of an old book cover that I thought was super cool, with this person carrying a canoe over their head, portaging with the sun setting in the background. And again, I felt like it really went with the other piece of art I found because everything was in black except for the sunset, which was red. It just felt serendipitous, like it was meant to be. These two pieces of art just felt like they belonged together. Adding the notes header underneath, again with that sort of slightly messy, handwritten, hand-drawn feeling, filling in the letters just by sort of scribbling, although I did try to scribble a little darker at the top and bottom and keep it lighter in the center, just for a little bit of consistency across the letters and for a little bit of interest. This entire setup was done with a single red pen and a single black pen and a ruler and a pencil, I guess, because I sketched things out ahead of time, but very simple, very few supplies, and I love how it turned out. And I feel like this is something that can be applied to a lot of different types of art, doing everything in black and white with a single pen, but then picking one element to highlight in a color can be really effective and really interesting. So I hope you enjoyed this setup. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already. I need to take a second to thank my patrons for their support. I've gotten quite behind on thanking individual patrons. The last couple months have been absolute chaos, so I apologize. So here I go, starting to catch up on those names. Extra special thanks to our patrons who joined the squad in August: Ali, Another Ali, Alex, Catherine, Sierra, Clayton, Colette, Dandelion, Dara, Genevieve, Incognito, Isabella, Jill, Jordan, Justine, Kaeli, Kim Marie, Kimberly, Kristen, Megan, Pamela, Perlinia, Steph, Sue, and Vicky. Welcome all of you to the squad. We are so excited to have you. Everyone who joined us in September, I will get you in the next video. I appreciate you all so much. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.